Hi, I'm the unqualified reviewer. Please subscribe to my channel, otherwise I will cast greater shoe pebble on you and you will have a pebble in your shoe that you will be unable to remove no matter how many times you shake it. There was a time when I was desperately trying to find a good slow burn horror movie. I had just finished watching Sinners and Overlord, two fantastic films that are as much of slow burns as politicians are truthful. That is to say, they're not slow burns in any way. So I turned to the one most consistent and reliable source of information: Reddit. Thus, I received recommendations for the two films I will be talking about today: Changeling and House of the Devil. Before watching this video, I highly recommend watching Changeling. It is an absolute masterclass of how to write compelling characters and interesting twists. Even if you don't like horror movies, I would still recommend watching it. It is probably less scary than Coraline. Actually, that's not saying much. It's not that scary, okay? There's like one jump scare in the entire film. Mr. Reviewer, should we also go watch House of the No? House of the Devil is the actual worst film I have ever seen. It's like watching 3 episodes of any HD TV show back to back, except the lights are turned off. So let's break down how to create a good slow burn horror film by analyzing the best and worst that this genre has to offer. To start, let's summarize each. In House of the Devil, a college student decides to accept a not at all suspicious job watching a house with an elderly couple's even elderlier, that's probably not a word, mom inside. Her friend, who dropped her off, is killed soon after leaving. Later on, the main character orders pizza, and the one who delivers the pizza is the same person who killed her friend. The pizza was drugged and she wakes up in a demonic ritual. She breaks free and kills the family, but is wounded as she tries to end the demonic ritual by sacrificing herself. The final shot is of her in the hospital as the nurse assures her she is lucky to be alive, and even her baby is fine, revealing that she is pregnant with the demon. A fine plot on paper, but not so much in execution. And we'll be circling back to that part, the execution part. In The Changeling, a professor loses his family to a truck. One of his friends hooks him up with a teaching job and a place to stay in a historic mansion. Strange happenings send the professor on a journey to uncover a mystery involving the senator and a murdered child. Despite legal challenges and other pitfalls, the main character presses on, driven to find out the truth due to his guilt about his own wife and daughter's deaths. In the end, all of the lies come crumbling down. In the final moments, as the senator dies from some medical condition, his soul ascends the stairs of the burning house as he is pulled into a conspiracy he didn't want to be a part of. This premise is a little bit less compelling on paper, but in execution, brilliant. So why does one succeed where the other fails? Let's answer this question by comparing different aspects of the two films. Let's start with the main characters. The main character of Changeling is John Russell, played brilliantly by George C. Scott, an actor famous for his turn in the film Patton and his role in 12 Angry Men. He also won an Oscar despite continually refusing Oscar nominations, as he believed it demeaned the art of acting as it added competition, which is just not relevant, but really cool. Or pretentious, or both. I think it's both. Anyway, John Russell is, as I said before, a conflicted character who is adrift after the death of his family. He is deeply driven to find the truth out, even at great personal cost to himself.
And I don't find this funny anymore.
It never was supposed to be. Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not?
Throughout the film, you can see him become almost obsessed with the history of the house and of the spirit of Joe Carmichael, the murdered child. But it never feels like he's crazy, as his own personal loss has clearly deeply affected him. Okay, interesting character, compelling. What about House of the Devil? The main character in House of the Devil is Samantha, who is played by Jocelyn Donahue of the she's in Doctor Sleep, I guess. Anyway, Samantha is a college student who needs money and doesn't want to birth the Antichrist. Do you see the problem? There is no thought of any kind given to the character of Samantha. She does not affect the plot. The plot affects her. Her lack of any discernible characteristics make it so that I feel less invested. Thus, when the plot slowed down, as they usually do in a genre called slow burn horror, I found myself not caring. This brings me to my second big problem pacing. My second big problem pacing. Sorry, had a pacing issue there. That joke is awful. Despite having a runtime close to 2 hours, The Changeling never feels slow. Despite having relatively few jump scares, as in there's one jump scare, the steady escalation of supernatural involvement and the growing mystery mean that I never felt my attention slipping. The brilliant acting, and character writing meant I felt invested and thus was interested in what the characters were saying and doing, even if it was literally them just reading old newspapers. I still felt invested as I cared about the characters and it was all linked to the larger mystery. So, how about House of the Devil? Pacing. So, how about House of the Devil's pacing? House of the Devil started out, I gotta say, really strong. It sets up the characters and everything seemed creepy but relatively normal. Then out of nowhere, Samantha's friend gets killed. This was genius. Setting up the brutality and spontaneity of the film meant that anything could happen. This meant that even though I was just watching Samantha walk through the house, I was on the edge of my seat. I was watching through my fingers, waiting for the next shocking jump scare. But this film brilliantly decided to subvert my expectations. And never have a jump scare in the film, ever, again, after that moment. Not one. They just were like, nope, can't do that, no more fun. And after 10 minutes of watching her wander around a creepy house, refusing to turn the lights on, I got really bored. Yeah, I got bored watching a horror movie. I've seen bad horror movies, from low-budget zombie films about a man stuck in a bathroom stall, to films that pull the "it was all a dream" card. But never before had I felt boredom. I genuinely felt as though I could have gotten the same experience this film was giving me by turning out the lights, spinning around, and wandering through my basement at night. Yeah, it'd be about as enjoyable, just bumping into stuff, and creepy, about as creepy, maybe even creepier. Okay, so far it seems as though I'm very negative towards House of the Devil, but there are still two important aspects of a slow burn: the threat presented and the eventual bombastic finale. In The Changeling, there isn't a clear threat. The ghost, that being the ghost of Joseph Carmichael, is fairly justified in what he seems to be doing, as he has a tragic backstory of being drowned by his own father, only to be replaced by another kid. And this makes his anger understandable. On the other hand, the other quote-unquote villain of the film, the replacement Joseph Carmichael, now Senator Carmichael, doesn't seem to have knowledge of what had happened, and when he finally realizes he is the Changeling, you can see him wrestle with that guilt. Both of the antagonists are sympathetic in their own ways, and evil in their own ways. One, because the ghost is clearly shown to, kill some people, and then the senator for being a senator. They also develop and change as the film progresses, making as they are dynamic characters in and of themselves. Also, one or the other is a threat at all times, meaning the intensity never really abates. The villain in House of the Devil is some random cult with the very generic goal of immortality or something. I don't care enough to look it up. The main threat is the grandmother. She's built up throughout the entire film, so I'm sure she looks cool and you know where this is going. She looks like the love child of the Moonlight Man and Alex Wesker. Come on. I slogged through House of the Devil because I love good monster design. But this Cronenbergian potato is not it.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
She also doesn't get a backstory until she's revealed in the last 15 minutes of the film, and there's no real build-up as we never actually see her before the final 15 minutes. And the design that looks like a yassified goth mog from Lord of the Rings all just comes together to be extremely disappointing. Whatever. I'm sure House of the Devil can regain some grace with me, right? By having a fantastic ending, because I'm sure its ending is brilliant. I already told you that. I don't know why I'm doing this. At the point where I reached the ending of the film, I was so drained that any actual progression of the story felt like a miracle. I already knew that the closing shots of the film showed she was pregnant, and now that I knew the absolute moron storm that led to this, I could not bring myself to care. I was just ecstatic it was over, and I was finally free to watch quality films like Sharknado or The Eternals. So now that I've discussed how not to do a climactic ending, let's talk about the ending to The Changeling, which is just about one of the coolest endings in horror. Behind the wailing, the monkey, and the menu. See, after Russell gets the locket from the dead boy, he brings it to Carmichael and gives him the locket and tells him the story of how he's a changeling. Carmichael becomes visibly distraught, showing just how much he loves his father, and breaks down, saying his father would not be a murderer. His father is a good man. It then cuts back to Russell's friend, who somehow manages to wander into the attic of the house looking for Russell because, people really like to just hang out in their attics. At this point, she gets chased by a haunted wheelchair, which is not at all as scary as the filmmakers thought. Then Russell returns and starts yelling at the boy's ghost as everything starts to just go absolutely crazy. At this point, Carmichael has a crisis of faith as he places the true pendant on the picture of his father. At this point, the staircase begins to burn with a really cool practical effect of the fire running all the way down the stairs. And that's when Carmichael's spirit gets transported to the house. Russell stares as Carmichael just appears in front of him, and now that the house is burning down, Carmichael sees a vision of his father drowning, the true Joseph Carmichael, and has a heart attack. It is unclear of why he has a heart attack. Was it the guilt of realizing that he had replaced a child murdered for profit? The shock of learning his father was a killer? An acceptance of his own complicit nature in all of this? Was it the ghost of the true Joseph Carmichael getting vengeance? Or the most likely answer, this dude was just old as all get out. Strictly speaking, this ending isn't all that crazy, but it doesn't have to be. The image of the stairs slowly catching fire will be permanently burned in my head because of the journey you had to go on to get there. The build-up makes the seemingly non-climactic ending of house burning down into an amazing spectacle. But in House of the Devil, there just is no journey. So, yeah, you need a journey to make an ending climactic. If nothing ever happens throughout the movie, you can't have a peak without the mountain. Anyway, go watch The Changeling. It's a great film. Also, again, please do like and sub. I really appreciate it. Peace.